Hey, Deidre, it's Rich from the auto auction.
Hey, Rich, what's going on?
I got a big sale coming up and I have absolutely no idea how to market it. Can you help
Oh,
me at all?
yeah, you definitely called the right person, Rich. Why don't you meet me at the gate?
I'm Rich Levene, and this is Meet Me at the Gate, where we're not just talking theory, we're tackling real world problems head on, driving solutions that supercharge productivity and team dynamics. Every episode is a journey towards improvement, empowering you, the manager, to lead with innovation and confidence. Join us to transform everyday roadblocks into highways for success.
So I honestly have no idea how to do marketing. I've read some books, I've tried some marketing, but I'm not. Let's just be honest, I suck.
I would not say that you suck personally, but you're really good at building a personal brand, and that's actually more difficult for a lot of marketers than building a brand for somebody else. So.
I think everybody is a marketer. They don't realize it yet. Really, the core of marketing and the truth of marketing is building a great relationship. If you can build a friendship with somebody, you can do marketing.
So let's unpack that. I'm a fleet lease manager. I'm a dealer consignment manager. I'm a transportation manager, whatever. I'm working at the auction. I need help. I got a cars to move. I got a sale to run, whatever it is. Where do we start?
I think the first thing you really need to think about is your matchmaking. You have something to offer. Who is interested in what you offer? Where do you provide value? So I use the line, identify your target audience. Understand who your potential buyers are in that space, what they're looking for. How does that match up to you? In like an auction space that could include a car dealer, a collector, that could include, a various amount of groups. So they're not just going to be one person. It's probably going to be several different roles inside of this conglomerate called your target audience. But that would be the first place that I would start. Is it's hard to reach a target if you don't know what that target looks like. So make sure you start with that. Draw your target of here's everybody that I could potentially reach.
And then I would add to that, being really, really clear about your target helps. I think a lot of times what bogs people down when they're trying to market initially or when they're trying to do it themselves is that there's a lot of ambiguity about who your target is. If you're really clear about the type of person that you're trying to attract to your brand, then you know how you want to communicate with that group of people.
So tell me a little bit more about Be Clear. Are we talking buyers? Are we talking sellers?
Well, wait a minute. I got to throw one in here too. Because I think what I'm hearing here is what I used to call know your customer.
In fact,
and did you hear that? Did you hear that in a sales capacity or a marketing capacity? Because there's a lot of overlap there.
Sales. So I've got sales background, but marketing, it's kind of the same idea. So yeah, if you know your customer, which is your target audience, that's what you're saying.
It depends on your business maturity. Like if you're just starting out, you may not have a lot of customer information. If you're an established business, you know who your customers are. So reverse engineer that to say they look like this. This is their firmographic information. These are their titles. These are their needs. These are why we do business with them. Like the best place if you have customers to pull data from or to speak with, that's going to help you define that target market because you want to go create more of those customers, and then that's the easiest place to start. If you don't know, that's where you do have to dive in and do some market research, right? If you're just starting out, look at your competitors.
There you go, market research.
Yes. Who is the potential out there? So there's a couple different elements you have to weave, but if you have existing customers, to figure out who your best target market is, it's the customers. It's not just all customers. It is the customers that you want to clone. How do you want to make more of those customers? Who are your best customers? And that should become your target market.
Yeah. When you're talking about how sales and marketing work together, and that's why it always kind of cracks me up, like the person who probably knows your customers the best is your sales team. They're the ones that are typically having the more, thorough conversations with them. They're spending the most time with them. They're out there on the front lines talking about your brand every single day. And those people know what's going on with your customer base.
Exactly.
That's why, I've never understood why marketing and sales get painted as being opposites of each other, because we're really not. We're playing for the same team here.
Exactly. They always say, one of us is from Venus, the other is from Mars. And I think that, it's a philosophy that I have about sales and marketing. And in the way that if you're running an organization, you have a sales team and a marketing team, thinking about getting the two of them on alignment is give them the same goals. So when you look at marketers and you say, hey, marketing, your goal is to get leads, I could go out and get you a whole bunch of leads, but are they leads that the sales team can actually work and close and lead to customers? So give them both a revenue number. Say, hey, you guys both own this entire process. And I think that's what's really, really important in bringing together sales and marketing teams is you don't want to create silos in what they're trying to accomplish. And that's what brings them together. And when you have that environment where they start to collaborate, sales is helping marketing craft messaging. We're helping to eliminate objections before they even get to sales. In a lot of business, a large percent of the buying journey is done online. It's done before they even talk to a human, which is really where marketing is living in that space. And so the more intelligence that we have to solving some of these barriers to the sale higher up in that journey, that's where sales and marketing kind of come in and play. And it's a beautiful thing when you have it, but it takes work. And it starts with align their goals. That's the first thing you could do.
Yeah, probably my favorite thing about working in independent auctions in the past is that your sales team is right there. If you do something that they're not a giant fan of, they're probably going to come talk to you about it. And the good news is if you want some ideas like, hey, I'm putting together this campaign or this promotion, I need some feedback, like instant feedback, your sales team's going to be pretty honest with you.
Exactly.
They're going to tell you like, no, that's not going to work for this reason and this reason and this reason. So maybe think of something else.
So where do you start then? So you're coming up with a plan. We're gonna market a sale. You said identify your target audience. So
Correct.
Let's break this down. Let's use the example we did with our event sale. We needed to go get more customers. Both of you helped me with this. Where do we start?
We had a really good opportunity in that this had never happened before. So we got to have something that doesn't happen a lot in the auction world, which is we got to have a lot of time to think out how we wanted to market this event, because there's a lot of, you have to be very agile, I think, to be a marketer in the auction space because things change very quickly. But when we started thinking about the type of customers that we wanted to target for the rodeo sale, we did cast a pretty wide net in the beginning, and I don't think that was a bad way to go, but we ultimately knew that we wanted, particularly for the part of the event that was the roundtable, we wanted dealers who wanted to engage with more than just their little space or silo in the business. They wanted to learn a little bit more about the total process. They wanted to get some insight into how they can do things a little bit better within their own processes. So like, I think when we were looking at your customers, we started with your customers that are there every single week. And then we started looking at customers that had buying habits that we thought might align with the type of speakers we were going to have. We approached them in a couple of different ways. We approached them via email. You had some conversations. I know we batted around the term grassroots a lot when we were talking about the approach that we took to this sale. And that grassroots part of it was because we knew that A, we did not have a built-in audience for this event, and B, this is a relationship business and it was going to take a lot of relationships to get this off the ground for the first time.
Dive into that for us, Anna, because I remember when you and I had a conversation, we said grassroots. If you're doing a grassroots marketing plan, what does that mean? Help our rookie out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I think grassroots, it gets thrown around a lot. And I think the reality of a grassroots, it's organic. It's got this very natural approach to it. It's not overly architected or engineered in that capacity. It starts with knowing your customer and knowing what the customer needs and telling a compelling story that gets them to take that objective. And I think grassroots is truly just making that connection. How you go about doing that, that's where the grassroots start. I mean, it's just like, the true description, putting roots in the ground, you start to see the little sprigs of grass come up. That's where you're getting traction. So it's a learning process when you're doing things in a grassroots approach versus like, coordinated marketing campaign where it's like, we've got a template and we've done this over and over again. Like you're starting something very, very fresh. You're not taking something off the shelf that's been done 1,000 times. Grassroots is like, we're starting with the relationship and we're starting with the objective. And how do we get to that? You start to create that process. And I think that was what was really important to what you guys were doing. And what Deidre just said is she said, we looked at where are the relationships? It's a relationship business. And how do we start to bring in, like, how do we create an experience that's what they would enjoy and want to see? How do we bring in speakers that are people they want to hear from? And I love the things that she highlighted too, because it's like, here's the purpose of the event. And I think that's very important. Like you have to know that, I talk about like the P's of marketing, right? Where it's like, your product and your placement. I think the most important P that gets left out of it, there's usually 4, but I say there's 5. The 5th one is the people. And that is actually the one that I think people you technically forget in marketing world. You've got all the other elements, but people is where it starts. So knowing them, knowing the objectives of your event, do they match the objectives of the people you're bringing together? That's truly where it starts out.
So I got 2 thoughts in my head. So I'm going to go to Ty here in a second. But before we get there,
Just
2,
two?
I got way more than 2.
I
got
it.
2.
I love it.
I'm
No, there's
channeling.
way
I'm
more than
channeling 2 major thoughts in my brain right now. But there's a lot going on. Okay. So number 1, you just said 4 P's, 5 P's in marketing. I use 4 P's, 5 P's in leadership: plans, processes, products, profits. The 5th P is people. Your 5th P is people.
4 P's of marketing, and this is like, your marketing 101 class you'll take. So the first P is product. Like, what are you selling? It's not necessarily even a tangible product. It could be a service. But what are you selling? What are the advantages or benefits that are going to connect with the market that you're offering to? Second one is price. It needs to be priced to reach that market and be attainable for them, right?
Can you cut my fees?
Yeah. I love it. But it is a part of it, right? Like pricing strategies, I think pricing strategies are fascinating because they're inherently complex, right? There's so much that goes into it, competitive analysis, perceived value, demand flows. Like we could geek out about pricing strategy for months, but I'm not going to put you through that. But I love talking about it. The third P is place. And it's especially important in direct to consumer markets. Where are you going to sell the thing? But in a B2B market space, where is your market actually at? So are you a regional area servicing within a mile radius, or are you an online business only serving in certain market spaces? Are you in a certain vertical? So it's how are you placing your product or service? And then the 4th P is promotion. What's your plan? How are you going to get the word out? What channels are you using? And those are the 4 traditional P's that they teach you. That's why I say, like, scratch that. There's not 4 P's. There's 5 P's is people. Like, I really look at, it's not just your product. It's about the people. Like, are you actually solving? I mean, I could come up with the most brilliant idea and create something around it. But if there's nobody to buy it, I'm never going to get this thing off the ground. I have to actually solve a challenge for somebody. I have to provide something that has a value to them. I'm sure my marketing professors in college right now are sitting there going like, Edita, we taught you the 4 P's, but realistically there is a 5th P. It is people.
See, and I use that when I talk about leadership, everybody. So are you a leader or are you a manager? And what I argue is if you only care about profits, products, processes, and plans, you're just a manager. If you add people in there and you put people first, not last, now you're a leader. So you got the profits in there. So I
always say there's a growth loop. There's a growth loop in that and I love this diagram. It's you create happy employees. Happy employees create happy customers. Happy customers create happy metrics. Happy metrics create happy shareholders. And happy shareholders continue to allow you to grow your business with happy employees. I love companies that look at their employees as an asset of their business. Realistically, it's one of the things that drives you. In fact, it's the most expensive asset when you look at the line items in a budget. Realistically, like how much do you spend on talent and headcount? Like if you're investing that much in them, they should be one of the biggest assets of your business, just like your product or your brand. You're spending time working on it and investing in it and growing it and making sure that it's healthy. Do the exact same thing for your people. It's your asset of your business.
See, now you're getting me to
that's my soapbox. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Hey, your TED Talk, but you're getting me to geek out because you talk about assets and liabilities, and that's what managers or executives usually do. And a lot of times, believe it or not, they take people and they put people in a cost center, and then when it's in a cost center, it becomes a liability. People are your largest asset. And until you change your frame of mind, you're always going to be stuck in the management realm. And then based on what you said, you're not going to be a very good marketer either. So, and I know I'm putting words in your mouth. I'm synthesizing stuff, but I'm picking up what you're putting down. It's like people are important. And I think that's what we always try to do on here. Come up with solutions. How can you make your marketing better? Obviously, it's got to involve people.
And I would I would add another P to that one too, because when you create an environment where people are happy, then you get people who are passionate about what they do. And when you're passionate about what you do, you create passionate customers who become passionate cheerleaders for your brand. And then they're doing the marketing for you.
Absolutely.
I think that's the biggest learning in people-based environments, people-based industries. And let's be real, some of them are not all people-based. Can you think of a product that you have utilized and never talked to a single person at all? Like I could name tons of them. So this is people like, oh, you think about like a digital transaction, right? And this is a brand I personally love very much, but like Duolingo, it's the app that you go and you learn language with, and it's got the little green owl that I have nightmares about because I get behind on my schedule and it gets angry at me. I never have talked to a human. I've never talked to a person in that brand whatsoever. Now, do I love the brand? Yes, I think they've used a mascot to create some kind of relationship there, but it's not a people-based industry. Like they're still thinking about servicing people and solving a person's problem, but they're not trying to build a relationship with you, right? Like they couldn't tell me other than my name and the data they have on me and what languages I'm learning, what I like to do. And if I have a family and, what stress or fracture I had the other day trying to, solve something. They don't know that about me. All they know is my app usage. And so in a relationship business, especially like the automotive industry, I think that's incredibly important to really know, your people and think about it as a marketer. Because that's why I said, like, that target audience component is so important. Knowing who your customers are. It's not about molding yourself necessarily. Like your brand is your brand and you're creating a brand that's conducive to the product that you're solving for, but that brand also needs to connect with people. You might not remember the name of the sales rep that you worked with to buy something. You may or may not. You remember the experience. You might not remember the support rep that closed your ticket when you had a problem, but you remember that they solved or did not solve that problem. You may not remember the ad that you saw that at first initially attracted you to their website. You might not remember all these little tiny pieces, but those all add up to a relationship that somebody is having with your brand. And so your people are an extension of that brand. Your marketing activities are an extension of that brand.
And I think you nailed part of it is, I don't know, I'm going to promise you that not everybody's going to remember me, Deidre, Ty, or Anna Ty. But I think what they are going to remember is the experience.
Yeah, it was great. There was, and that wasn't just any one of us either. I mean, like you had the idea to have the mechanical bull at the round table night, and that was gangbusters. I legitimately want a mechanical bull at like every event that I plan from now on. Like I'm trying to figure out a way to incorporate mechanical bulls into all events in Michigan where we can
ship one to you.
How do you make this actionable, right? Like I always tell people, like one of the steps to doing anything, if you know who it is, you already know your audience, you have to craft a compelling offer. And that's what you guys did with this event. You created an event and a theme and an experience, and that was your compelling offer, right? Your sale needs to stand out of all, and you were, to be fair, it was the same weekend as the Houston Rodeo, so you were competing with like one of the biggest letterbuck events, in town. Yeah. And so you're having that, but I think your sale, you made it stand out, right? Like anybody could just say, we're going to do a sale today. You guys said, how do we make something memorable that's exciting for people to go to? And I guarantee you, there's people, if we ask them, hey, what was your favorite thing about that event? They'll remember things like the mechanical bull, or maybe it was the great barbecue that you guys served, or, it could have even been the conversations they had with their peers around them. Like there's a takeaway for every person, and they remember that event now because of it.
The cowboy hats.
Yeah, when we were putting that one together, the good news is that was my biggest role at Fastlane for a very long time. Was Greg and I would come up with promotional events, and then I would put together the details. So I kind of, at this point in time, I think I have a pretty good instinct for vendors that will work really well, people that you just get a vibe off of them from the first moment that you interact with them. And we got really lucky that like all of the vendors that we chose for that event, all of them just were amazing. The food, they went like absolutely above and beyond. So they were fantastic. That I got to give a shout out to Cheyenne, because she's the one that designed all of the graphics for the rodeo sale, but learning how to, have that hierarchy of information when you're trying to communicate with people that a lot of times don't have a lot of, spare moments to absorb that much information that's coming at them. that's years of auction industry right there.
Cheyenne did
at
awesome.
work. we know at this point.
That logo was awesome. But you know what? I can't wait till next year when we have a logo with the train going by, then the bull smashes the train.
I had to have a conversation with Rich about how
we're
the
changing
event logo stays the same every year.
We got to make sure marketing is really working. We're going to test marketing.
Rich definitely had a good idea with the trains, and so that's definitely something that I think we'll probably play with as we go along.
I love a good theme, especially I think
I know you went all in too. Yeah. I loved the hat.
You guys executed so well. Like it's, I think having themes for events, especially, like, it makes it fun. I mean, anybody could take a template of an event off a shelf, and again, it's like I said, anybody could go do a sale. But it's what's making it memorable. Like, if you have a great theme, you're really leaning into the theme, and that's what makes it fun and exciting and different. I enjoy things like that, and I like putting that together because it creates an experience, especially a unique experience. I think those are the types of things, like if I think about throwing an event or what are bespoke things that I can do at an event, the mechanical bull is a prime example of that. Like, you don't go to every event and see a mechanical bull. Like, you just don't.
No, and I want them to
That's just a Houston thing. Yeah. We've got a trademark on that. So I want to like.
I love it. We guys do everything bigger in Texas.
We try.
I love
Although
it.
you brought little cowboy hats, and I wanted to see Ty in a little cowboy hat.
I did.
Those cowboy hats are awesome.
Yeah, why didn't you?
I had to rock the theme. I mean, yeah, exactly.
But I need Ty in a cowboy hat.
Ty does need.
He didn't wear
Ty
one. He didn't wear a
tiny
cowboy hat. Tiny Ty.
I don't think I.
Yeah, that is.
I don't think I ever wore my hair though. Like, I took one home with me because I'm going to wear it when I go tubing later this year. But
so
I don't think
next year we're going to work on a deal. We're going to try to give out rodeo bucks, and I am going to bring in a custom hat shaper who sells his own hats. And so you're going to buy cars. We're going to start beginning of January. You come into E-Block Houston, you buy a car. I'm going to give you. I'm just making a number up right now. I don't know what it's going to be. Let's just say it's $10. And then you apply those $10 for every car you buy, and then you'll have quote-unquote rodeo bucks. We're going to bring in Alan's lids, and he designs and makes his own hats. I just did one this weekend. It looks like a flying saucer with a dome on the top. 10 minutes later, he gives you a custom-shaped cowboy hat made to the way you want, puts it on your head, steams it, shapes it, everything. It is the coolest thing in the world. It was so much fun.
I love that.
Yeah.
That sounds like
pretty cool.
I like that you're gamifying the event, and I think that's really neat. Like, I'm a geek for the gamification of things. So gamification is a rewards-based behavior. You're trying to create something that has a benefit for your customer or your user to do certain things. But in actuality, that gamification is driving user behavior. It's driving adoption of their product. It's driving them to continue to utilize. So that gamification, I love that you're thinking this route, because it actually really is. It's incentivizing, like, I want those bucks. I want more of those bucks. I'm getting rewarded for doing what I was going to come here to do. It's just to buy cars here at this auction. And you're rewarding them for that. And I love that you've put a cool element into it. So it's like the reward is something that matches the theme, and it's fun and it's exciting, and people want to stand by and watch. Like, I would want to watch this guy make the hats. Like, I would be right there observing it. But I think it would be amazing. I think that's really an amazing concept, because you're creating a benefit to being here. You're creating an additional reward system. And I think that's really cool. And that's really, really cool.
They do that at our auction in New Orleans too. They have the John Doe bucks, which was something that was pioneered by John Poteet, where they reward dealers in John Doe bucks all year, and then they get a couple of different sales where they get to cash those in.
I love that.
Yeah, it's super fun. Yeah. But I think we do. I mean, most auctions I think are doing some sort of reward.
Beautiful.
Basically every single time that you're there.
Yeah, that's a great way. Great way to build and continue.
Yeah, I think that's probably been the most interesting thing about the whole land meets tech philosophy that we've been trying to work through the last couple of years at eBlock, is like, how do we create the same type of rewards in the lanes? How do we translate that to digital? There's a learning curve, but I think it's been a lot of fun.
There's a lot of opportunity in that space. I love that was, I think, my favorite part of watching the experience of the event, is knowing that there's this in-person experience happening, but there was also a digital experience happening as well. What you did you had speakers, but when you had your speakers, you actually live stream that. So you could be present or you could be online and you could still be an online buyer and participate. So I think there's a lot of ways to expand on that. Like I'm excited to see what you guys do with next year and the year after that, and however many new editions of t-shirts Rich can come up with.
I'm sure Rich can come up with endless editions.
I may be able to come up with more t-shirts. So some of the feedback I've gotten, because I went back and I did ask some of the dealers that were present and other people that heard about it, and I said, hey, we're going to do this next year. What would you like to see different? One of the resounding themes that's come back is we need to make it bigger. But how do we make it bigger? And this is the common theme. They want it broke down into like 2, probably 3 panels. Now, we went an hour and a half and we talked about everything. And a lot of it ended up being transportation because we had some really smart transportation people there. They said, hey, what if you break it down? In the morning we talk about maybe it's buy here, pay here. And then maybe in the afternoon we talk about recon, and then we talk about transportation. So breaking it up, make it, having 3 or 4 panels, and Ty will be moderating all day, but getting that flow in so we can add some more education. Because that number one is, so we go back and look at what we were really were marketing at this. The number one idea I had was what can we give dealers and what can we get back that we all can share out of this? And that answer I kept coming up with was knowledge. How can we all become smarter? How can we all become better? How can we work together? And that was the resounding theme. And then we went into the grassroots, Ty with his connections. And when you're talking about grassroots earlier, this is what went through my brain. You're defining it. Grassroots, picking up the phone, calling. Hey, Deidre, we're going to have a sale. This is what's going to go on. Would you like to be a part of it? Do you want to come out? And, Ty was doing that. Ty's got more connections than anybody. And so we start talking about these things, and that's where the grassroots comes in. And then so that was, I guess, maybe you want to call it the underground marketing. And then you all with your official marketing, I'm going to call you the pros, the official marketing. You guys did it with emails, with text, with social media. I remember picking up the phone and calling Deidre and say, hey, I'm going to do a social media. What do you want me to talk about? And you're like, hey, don't do one of your skits. You need to do this, something about this. I mean, so she kept me on track, which needs to happen so that we're not diluting. We go back to what was one of the first things you said about know who your audience was, identify the target audience, and be clear.
Well, yeah. And we knew we had a lot that we were trying to communicate right off the get. And we knew that we were asking people to attend a roundtable during business hours. So we knew that we were going to have to make it really enticing for them to be there because this is anybody that's worked in the auto industry, especially the auto auction industry, knows that time is money. These guys are, if they're not at a sale, they're researching what they're going to buy at a sale. If they're not researching what they're going to buy at a sale, they're wrapping up what they bought at the last sale. And it's nonstop. So you have to really make sure that what you're offering them is something that they want to give up valuable time for, because that's really the commodity that we are trading in for the roundtable is how much time are you willing to sacrifice to come hang out with us and learn something. And we're giving you that value in return, but we needed to make sure that we were convincing them that that value was there. So I really love that that's the feedback that you got, because I'm not going to lie, in the beginning, the part that I was most nervous about getting an audience for was the roundtable. I mean, we've done promo sales at every auction I've ever worked at in my entire 11 years in the industry now. You can make promo sales work. There's a lot of energy. You're always offering something. Even if it's not the most successful promotional sale, you're probably still going to at least get a bigger turnout than you could expect at a regular week. But the roundtable was the part that it's like, ooh, this is interesting. How do we go about this? Yeah. So I'm really thankful that we did get lucky and that we had a really great cross-promotional partner in us and Ty and Super Dispatch. We did have a really good cross-promotional partner in Ty, because Ty has a very big audience. That's something that we touched on earlier in this call, was talking about building your personal brand. And that's something that I feel like you and Rich really excel at. Even if you don't know that you're doing marketing a lot of the time. So I think that those are the elements that made that part really successful. I would love to see this get expanded to something bigger. I think you and I have already talked about how amazing it would be to rent a very big space and turn this into a full-blown
parking lot conference. We're going to rent a tent.
Parking lot. We're gonna do a tent in the parking lot. We're gonna keep it at the auction. But yeah, I do remember there was a moment, and I'm sure Anatol can relate to this, especially if you've ever worked in event marketing, because when you're planning a new one, you really don't have any idea of what to expect. But there was a moment at the happy hour where I kind of finally looked around and took a breath and was like, Okay, we made it.
I have a saying that I tell people about event marketing specifically that it's a lot like a wedding, planning a big wedding, that there's a certain point in the process of the event that you are either on that train or you are going to get run over by it. So you have to step back and say, where am I at on this event, and just commit, and events it's one of those things not for the faint of heart ever, because it's, you finish the event and you have 3 seconds to say, what do I do next? And then it's like, I got to evaluate and plan and get ready for the next one. It's a constant cycle. But I think that the learnings, and I think this is something that I would definitely say, no matter what you do from the event, if you're doing something small or you're doing something very, very large, I think you guys touched on one of the most important things that you can do, which is get feedback. And I really love the feedback that came out of the event that you shared with us, Rich. I love that they talked about breaking it up. Rich, that's a great idea. I think that's a fantastic plan. The other thing I would recommend for anybody creating educational content, because this is like my heart and soul that you guys are getting into here. If you're creating educational content, hack the content. And when I say hack the content, if you create a video, there's shorts for social media, post it on a blog and transcribe it for SEO purposes, turn it in, take subtopics out of that presentation and write 5 or 6 or 7 blogs out of it with those subtopics. Maybe you got into data and you could follow up with an infographic with that data. So that's it's an art form. And I'm very, very lucky to have an amazing member on my team in Casey Lacombe, that she does that on our side, is thinks of ways to hack content into a bunch of different formats, because it makes it broader spectrum. You can really distribute that. But 2, it also meets people where they're at. So you learn a lot about your users. I'll tell you my preference. I love video, but I like video with transcriptions, because I'm usually watching the video sitting in an airport or the doctor's office or somewhere where I'm busy and I can't have my audio on all the time. So I'll sit there and I like those little 5-minute, 2 to 5 minute shorts that I can read. That's my favorite content. But I'm really excited about, and it kind of ties it back to what you guys are doing with blending this digital and physical and building relationships. And I love that, because the way that we can engage with the world is so different now. It's so different than it was before.
I think too, yeah, for a really long time in the auction industry too, I think a lot of people just assumed that physical would just get phased out and we would only be digital. And I really love the last couple of years that people are starting to really acknowledge. I can't remember what I was listening to recently. They were talking about having customer service versus not having customer service. You know what, Rich? Oh my God. It was your podcast. I was listening to it. Somebody mentioned, I think it was you and Ty, somebody mentioned Chick-fil-A. And one of the reasons Chick-fil-A is successful, and it's because they have maintained that element of connection to their customers that so many other businesses have left behind. I don't want to say that digital doesn't have that, because I think that there are a lot of touch points for customers with a digital option as well. And I think that there are a lot of great benefits to it, but I don't know where we ever got to a point where we thought it had to be either or. When we know that our customers...
You don't have to make that choice.
It doesn't have to be.
I think that...
It's...
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm going to step in on this one. Hang on a minute. Digital was definitely before COVID. We all know that, right?
Made it bigger.
But what did COVID do? It forced everybody. It forced, you don't have a choice. So back to what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. There was, for an old guy like me who says, I want to go to the auction, and no, you can't. And if you do, then you got to wear a mask, and try to tell a guy like me that I have to have a vaccine and I have to have a mask before I can come to your place of business. It doesn't work well. So what it did was it drove a wedge. This is just my opinion. I hate you, online digital auction, because this is what you've done to me. You've taken away my options, my choices. Fast forward 3-4 years today, my mindset, and hanging out with Rich and learning more about eBlock and Deidre and even Super Dispatch. I've spent a ton of time with Super Dispatch and Beck and Stan. And I look at this and I'm like, okay, I'm not mad anymore. I let it go. I forgive everybody. I'm sorry I was an angry asshole, but okay, I'm going to let it go. And what I'm starting to see today, and even being in Houston at eBlock at the Roundtable event, okay, we can all get along, and we can make this work. And it can be advantageous for everybody involved, no matter which side of the playground you're on. what I'm starting to see in my relationships, because I'm still boots on the ground, I still go to auctions every chance I get. I was at one yesterday. Anyway, but what I'm starting to see is there is kind of an acceptance, okay? And it seems to be there's this push where we can all make it happen. So I think there's a little bit of an element there where when you start telling people what they can and can't do, it's going to create some kind of pushback. And there was, maybe it was
people.
3 years.
I wonder
4
if it's
years
all
for
about
that.
people.
But that I am going to throw that.
Sorry, I don't really know how like every single dealer felt, but feedback I got a lot. And we went from whatever the amount of per users we had every single week that were logging in digitally, tripled and stayed there after the auction, or not after the auction, I'm sorry, after the pandemic. So like a lot of the feedback I got was that this kind of pushed people to evolve in that space a little bit more than they probably would have otherwise. Obviously, Ty got there a couple more years down the line when it wasn't something that he had to do and it was something that he just wanted to do. But I've always appreciated, I guess, that one little side effect of the pandemic, no pun intended, being as how it was COVID, was that a lot of people got to experience digital auctions really for the first time because they had never given it a chance before. And it was out of a necessity to continue doing business. And it was twofold in that it really forced our industry to adapt faster than I think that we ever had. And it also gave people an opportunity to diversify how they approached buying and selling vehicles in the wholesale space.
So what advice are you going to give a new manager in the auto remarketing industry?
Be consistent. That like if you don't have a lot of tools at your disposal in the beginning, to me the most valuable thing you can do is be consistent. Be consistent in how you communicate with your customers, be consistent in which marketing channels you're using, be consistent. I think you've probably also learned this with your podcast. Like the more consistent that you communicate with your customers, the more you're going to
every Monday morning, 6 a.m. Central Time in a tie.
Yeah, I think if I was to give anyone, and I'm looking at it, from building a brand and building a market presence, right? Like what advice would I give them? I think the first thing, if they're coming from the industry, they understand the market and industry trends, but make sure you're doing everything you can to stay on top of that. And don't just put the knowledge away in your personal library, but find ways to condense that in to continue to educate the team around you. Because the more information, I think that's the best thing that my CEO and some of my best leaders have ever done for me. They've got their thumb on the pulse and they're constantly informing me, even as a marketer, informing the team around me. Marketing is not a finite science like that. There's a lot of gray area and you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable in that environment. So get really, really good at taking insights, building that presence and learning from it, getting your data in, and you're going to make really wise decisions that way.
For me, you hit it earlier. It's people. It's about
people. It's all about people.
It is people.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Meet Me at the Gate. I hope the conversation has helped to fuel your drive and equip you with insights to steer your team towards success. Remember, the road to success is always under construction. And until next time, keep your engines revving and your gas tanks full.